So no one had ever done a film in Equatorial Guinea, and that meant that there was no equipment, not a professional crew. We were about 6 people or so who went out there and recruited a few people. There was oddly enough, it's the only country in Africa that speaks Spanish. So it was a Spanish-speaking country. There was a Spanish theater group, and some of the people in the theater group became our actors. So it was dealing with people who'd never really acted in a film before, taking our own equipment in 12 boxes, a country with malaria, a country that's dangerous because of it's had a bit of a troubled past, but in the end the people were wonderful. We got the support, people enjoyed it, but you know, had to take malaria pills every day. That made it very difficult for you. We had to travel very long distances. The day after we shot the scene of them chasing in the Jeep to the hospital, Juliette Landau, she's Martin Landau's daughter, her husband caught some crazy salmonella bug from a meal he had. And literally a day after that scene was filmed, I was racing with him to a hospital, ended up saving his life. He was, it was a virus that attacked his blood cells, and his body went into septic shock. It was literally, if we'd gotten him to the hospital, I don't know, half hour later, he would have died. And so we lost her for 3 days on the shoot because she was by his bedside, not sure if he was gonna make it. So these were all sort of problems. So we're shooting. We're also shooting. We're shooting in 3 countries. Some of the filming was done in South Africa, where I'm from, because because the child actor Caesar, he was South African, and I thought that's tricky to take a 10-year-old kid to a country with malaria and putting him through all that. And he's a single mother family, so his mother couldn't be there either. So his scenes were shot in South Africa, and again, that brought certain challenges. Yeah, long answer to a short question.
So why did you go there to shoot? If there were all these different problems, why did you go there?
One of the investors of the film, what happened in Equatorial Guinea is a country that's really trying to turn its history around, and they discovered oil there. It's now becoming one of the wealthier countries in Africa. The whole country is changing. There's a big Chinese presence. There's a lot of Dutch investment in the country, and we had a Dutch investor in the film, and they wanted to give something back culturally to the country. They thought, here's a country the rest of the world is exploiting for its richness. Let's try and give them something back. Let's try and boost the culture in the country. And so they had very, very good humanistic reasons. And for me, it was, you know, I felt like Werner Herzog. It was a chance to go and film in a place where no one had ever done it. So I liked that challenge.
Was Jamie a trained actor?
No, he played an 8-year-old. He was actually 10 years old, and he'd done one commercial. I think it was a breakfast cereal commercial, and he had a little cameo in a film with the late Paul Walker, and it was called Vehicle 9, and he was a little kid who was a window washer, and he jumped in front of the car, and the car had to stop, and then he cleaned the window, and that was the only acting. But since the film, he's now a young star in a soap opera in South Africa that's on TV. We cast in Los Angeles. I saw about 30 kids in Los Angeles. They were all incredible, but they were so polished. After an audition, they would come up to you and they'd shake your hands and they'd go, "Thank you for giving me the privilege of performing for you." They all had managers. Next day you'd get a call from the manager, and but they were a little too polished. And then we had a casting agent in England looking, and I looked at some videotapes, or clips on the internet, say videotapes old-fashioned. And then we had a casting in Johannesburg in South Africa, and there was about I picked a short list of 15 boys, and as soon as Ciso smiled at me, I knew this was the one.
How long did it take from beginning to end?
The actual filming was done in 29 days.
Wow.
And that was in 3 countries. We shot for 3 days in Rotterdam, 2 weeks in Equatorial Guinea, and what's that, 15, 17, and then about 2.5 weeks in South Africa. But the pre-production and the script writing and the planning was of course, I'd say a good year before we started filming. The editing took about a year as well. I shot a lot more than what ended up in the film. I just thought in the end, it was, one of the challenges was we knew this was a film for an African audience, and then we knew this was a film for a European audience, so it was very difficult. I didn't know how to gauge that balance between making a film that a more sophisticated audience would like, but also of course it's having a screening in Equatorial Guinea where all these people loved the film. This happened about 2 weeks ago, I think. And so I had to try and get that balance right, and it took a bit of time and a bit of testing.
The writer of the story, did you meet him, know him before?
Yeah, he's we made about 4 short films together. Some of them played at Cannes, some of them played at Venice. We had one of them won an award from the BBC. We had a very good history together, and I had the story didn't come from him. The story came from a Dutch writer called Robert Mann. And then when I got his pages, I approached my friend and said, you know, can we do something with this? And I thought he did a good job. He had a good sense of humor. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for all your questions and for staying and for voting for the film. And if you liked it, please spread the word. And if you hated it, please don't say anything.
Tell them about the cab driver when he took that bottle, what he was drinking and the connection towards the...
Yeah, that drink, it's a real drink they have in EG. I'm not claiming you can run a car on it, but it was a home brew that was something like 90% proof. I tried it and it was actually quite tasty. It's made from fermented sugarcane. But if you've had a little cup like that, you're already starting to. And so I came up with the gag of that you could probably even power a car with it. So. that taxi, by the way, had 600,000 miles on it. It was falling apart. Most of the creaks you hear when they're driving is real. Thanks for coming and have a good evening.